So, in this next episode, what we're going to talk about is a crazy story of when I found myself in the Amazon rainforest with a bunch of cannibals, an uncontacted tribe, and had to negotiate my way out. It's a fantastic story, and I think you'll really like it. And there's some great lessons in the story about following your gut, following your intuition, and it will leave you with some interesting points. I'd love to hear what you think about them after you listen. Please feel free to comment below and like if you want more content from this channel. We'll see you on the next one.
So, how do you know when to follow your gut and when to follow your intuition? That's a really interesting question. So, sometime along the way during this whole journey, I found myself on a boat with just my guide, who was a local man. He was like part tribesman. And we were going down the Amazon River on a really rinky boat, traveling at a fairly slow speed to meet a previously uncontacted group of people from an Amazonian tribe. Now, we reach our point. We are hours away, say 15 hours away from our base camp in the jungle. And we notice these men in very primitive, like they carved these like boats out of log stuff. And they're out there in the middle of the Amazon forest. These guys looked amazing. And I have photos that I could share of this adventure. They actually had whiskers, which was really cool. I'd never seen men with whiskers. And I see the color in the face of my guide turn pale. Now, this is really unusual, right? So I'm thinking, okay, cool. I'm a savvy negotiator. We can communicate with these people, just maybe have a little bit of FaceTime, take a few photos. Everything's going to be great. My guide explains to me that he does not speak their language. Apparently, there's tons of tribes out there, maybe hundreds of tribes within the Amazon, and they all speak a different language. And so the guide may have some tools to communicate with them, but in general, he doesn't speak their language and they don't speak ours. Now, these men are armed, not with guns. We are not. We have some machetes, but believe me, we are not about to get into a fight with these guys. And these men are armed with things like dark guns and bow and arrows and spears and, very primitive type things. And I think somebody from their tribe had been to the closer reaches. He had brought them a few Western implements as well. So we're hanging out and then we're trying to communicate. And we noticed that they're actually trying to offer goods in trade, which I thought was a great sign. And they didn't really smile, which was very unusual. So I'm thinking to myself, should I smile? Should I not smile? Do smiles mean the same thing? And this is interesting if you ever read the work of Dr. Paul Ekman, who has done intensive documented work with tribes and human facial expressions. He goes about that there's a series of human expressions that are universal regardless of language and culture, but we're not going to go into that on this episode. But it is fascinating. If you want to learn about micro expressions, check out the work of Dr. Paul Ekman. He actually has an amazing website and an amazing course that you can take. I think it's for, a couple $100. You can learn everything that, he's taken lifetimes to develop the technology that he's developed, learning people's micro expressions regardless of culture. But so now we're here face to face with these people. And my guide lets me know in Spanish that he thinks these guys are cannibals. Now, mind you, cannibalism in these cultures is very different than what we think it is. They don't eat people for food or sustenance, but they fight neighboring tribes. And what they do is if they win, occasionally a guy might get eaten. Still happens to this day, even though it's largely undocumented because it's not something that's well publicized. from what I understand. I'm not a historian of these things, but this is what I'm told. And we look at these guys and we're giving them something in exchange for these things. So the one guy brings me this beautiful, clay mask that he's made. And I reach into my pocket and I take some money and I'm showing him the money. And the guy in the tribe that apparently made it to the village understands that this paper that I have, these US dollars, are money. And I hand the guy a $50 bill. And he looks at the $50 bill and it's really interesting, and he takes it and he seems satisfied with that, and he hands me the mask, and that's great. And so we're standing here transacting, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this could end up really cool. We could end up with some kind of cool souvenirs and some photos with these really cool guys. Could also go pretty bad. So I take the souvenir, and one after another, I'm handing them $50 bills. I had several with me. And then I'm out. So I have 320s. So the next thing I'm going to get, I give them three $20 bills. And they get really happy. And then they give me one final thing, and it's a monkey poison dart implement thing with beads. It looked pretty cool. It had like a monkey skeleton on it. And this was like one of their prize things. And I didn't have any more $50 bills or $20 bills left. So I handed the guy a $100 bill. And I saw him, the expression on his face turn to anger, one of the common micro expressions, but he had a micro and a macro expression on his face. And I realized in that moment that they did not understand money. They did not understand that $100 bill was more than three $20 bills, because this is how their minds work. At which point I decided I would start trying smiling. And I smiled and they looked at me, and things started to get tense as the men kind of circled us and another boat of theirs came around us, and I saw my guide getting really nervous. At which point I noticed the men were staring at something in our boat. What was it? It was a bottle of cola, fake Coca-Cola, like whatever their brand is there. And I realized that somebody had brought back to their village, their little huts in the jungle, a bottle of Coca-Cola. Now, mind you, these are people who did not have sugar and did not have, they had fruits, natural fruits, but they did not have refined sugar, and they did not have this drink. So I think to them, it must have been like, some incredible drug. And the man handed me back the money. He actually threw the $100 bill in my boat and pointed at the bottle of soda that my guide had. My guide just rushed and handed it to them. And they sat around. There was a little bit of power play between the men about who gets to drink first. And of course, the lead guy grabbed it. And I've never seen human beings so happy. They sat around, they drank the thing. They actually gave us the monkey thing, and they left. And it was an extraordinary interaction with these guys. But what I realized was that at all points during this interaction, things could have gone very wrong. You're out there in the middle of nowhere, and there is no doctor. There is no, if something happens, you are done, my friend. And there was something when I looked in the face of these guys that, really was kindness, but it was a real survival mentality. And I don't think that they would have hesitated if I had made the wrong move to have attacked in one way or another. I don't think it's common, but I think if they felt threatened in any way, or they felt the transaction was unjust, that I don't think it would have gone well for us. And in those moments is when I feel that intuition kicks in, that your gut feeling kicks in. And it's more than just this woo-woo kind of ethereal idea of not knowing and having this like higher sense of like what's going on. But it's this real sense that we don't know what it comes from. And I'm sure if people studied it, that they could find reasons for why we're this way. For example, there's been a lot of research on how we can tell that somebody is looking at us. And some of it derives from our ancestral, just how we evolved, our ancestral evolution of we needed to have better peripheral vision. So there's some research that's leading scientists to believe now, and mind you, I'm not an expert by any means in any of this stuff, and I may just be talking uneducated here, but I do remember reading that there is some evidence that we evolved with better peripheral vision. And if you actually sit and try, you can actually improve your peripheral vision out of the sides of your eyes. And that seems to have a evolutionary reason that makes sense. And I think we don't really need to know the reason why we do something always. And we don't need to know the reason why we go in a certain direction sometimes. Sometimes we have to try how something feels to us. And if it feels right, we can try it. As long as it's not something crazy or we don't go over boundaries, but that we test in very measurable ways. And it's similar with the work that I do now on e-commerce, is that we test, we try. There's no hard, fast answers to a lot of the mysteries that are out there with how you succeed in life, how you succeed in any specific business. What people don't tell you is that oftentimes the real mysteries in life and in business and in all this stuff are solved by just simple trial and error, by working through something. But how do you get there? You get there by following your gut. Now, we'll talk on future episodes about what it takes to actually follow your gut, to follow your intuition, and why some people are better than this than others. But in general, I'll leave you with this. Following your gut doesn't just mean blindly taking a guess and going after something. It entails you using your intellect, your knowledge, everything that you know, everything that's available to you, keeping your eyes 110% open, but still having a keen sensitivity for which direction you want to go and why. Okay, I rambled on a little bit, but I'll see you on the next episode. I'll see you.